Can you hear me? Okay.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right. We have several bills today that are identical to bills that we have dealt with in this committee, and we're going to try to move through some of these bills as quickly as possible. And I'd like to be able to take some of these bills up in a block and try to move them out as soon as we can. First, we'll start with Delegate Tyler, which is the amber warning lights that was identical to Senator Ruff's bill that passed out of Senate Transportation at 11-0. And if there's any of these that you want to take out of the block, just let me know. Next will be Delegate Kilgore's bill. This is dealing with the motor vehicle insurance compliancy that is identical to Senate Bill 1787, which is Senator Newman's bill. Next will be Delegate Plum, which is the special license plate members of International Association of Firefighters. That was identical to Senator Deeds. Next will be House Bill 2183, Delegate Austin, commercial vehicle training and testing, and that bill was identical to Senator Newman's, which passed this committee 13-0. House Bill 2226, Delegate Bagsby, designating the Trooper Mark Barrett Memorial Bridge. Next is House Bill 2674, which is Delegate Freitas's bill, notice of filing or recordation, and that passed this committee on a vote of 13-0. And if there's a motion to take those in a block,
So move, Mr. Chairman.
there's a motion and a second. All in favor of the block, vote aye on the electronic voting board.
12 ayes, 0 nays.
I'm sorry. I do. Can you destroy that and let's do it again?
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
Next, if I could have a motion to take by House Bill 2344. This is Delegate Bell's bill that is identical to mine, but there's some things we're needing to work out. If it's no objection to take that by for the day. All right. Next is Delegate LaRock's bill. Delegate LaRock's bill is identical to Senator Boysko's bill, which failed to report in Senate Transportation on a 6-7 vote, and we'll just hear some testimony, Delegate LaRock. And
well, perhaps it'd be worth pointing out to the chairman that it is not identical, similar. I think seeking to achieve the same end, which would be to authorize traffic incident management vehicles as defined in the bill to be equipped with red lights, red or white warning lights, and to be exempt from certain traffic regulations. So important distinction is, Mr. Chairman, based on input from emergency responders, representation, we have included in here a training component that was in the bill as well.
yeah, VDAS training. Yeah.
Withdraw my correction there, Mr. Chairman. That you've heard the testimony. I serve a district that is positioned along Route 81 significant need to improve the flow through that corridor, as does the chairman. And rapid incident response is a no budget element to it, no cost to it that would be carried into a budget, and many residual benefits, as you probably are well aware that as based on the testimony and your personal experience as a law enforcement, that follow-up accidents are a main cause of incidents. With this would reduce this because that the time I'm told would be response time would be reduced by 50%. So we've been called to make changes that improve the safety on Route 81. I would pose that this is a very timely, very efficient one for the committee to consider. And again, I won't labor this by repeating testimony that's already been heard. I was hoping the difference in this case was the training, which would, although not be as rigorous as full training for law enforcement, it would prepare these people to be qualified to drive in vehicles that are distinctly marked as emergency vehicles, as opposed to just a VDOT truck. And I guess at that, Mr. Chairman, you may want to hear from the audience, or I'd be glad to do the best I can to answer any questions.
Well, I think we heard a lot of testimony on this. One of the things that we had a lot of discussion on was the civil liabilities that are in given the ability for a vehicle to be equipped with red, white, siren, operating in an emergency section of the code that defines police, rescue, and fire. And the committee voted on a 6-7 vote not to report. And I don't think anything, in my mind, in this bill changes anything that we've already heard.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Cosgrove.
Who?
It's been a long week. Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, there's somebody who wants to speak to the bill. I'll suspend until they get a chance, unless you want me to.
You can go ahead. I think we heard from her last time we were here, and
All right, Mr. Chairman,
we'll let her speak, but
Okay, I'll wait.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. I did send to the committee some responses to the issues that were raised last week. I have additional copies of that letter. Also, I brought with me pictures of the VDOT vehicles, both the sort of generic VDOT vehicle that's not a dump truck and a VDOT vehicle that would be of the type, similar marking to these traffic incident management vehicles. My understanding is that VDOT only has about 24 of these vehicles. You can see there's a distinct difference in the way those vehicles look. And one is clearly an emergency type vehicle, the other is not. So I hope with those discussion of the issues, including liability, the insurance has to be carried, or self-insurance, by VDOT anyway. There are criminal penalties if operators fail to follow the law and drive in a wanton, excessive way, and there are also civil penalties. So I think we should be covered with that. I will hope that the committee will give it a more positive view given this additional information.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Is there anybody else that wants to speak to the bill? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff Gore on behalf of Loudoun County. I know you have heard this measure, but hopefully some of those concerns expressed have been allayed. This was thoroughly studied by Washington Council of Governments. It included VDOT, included emergency first responders. I think it's been proven to reduce response times to clear traffic accidents. That's all we're talking about. We're talking about in our main highways, our main most congested arteries, whether it's Hampton Roads area with the 64 and the tunnels, whether it's 95 and 66 in Northern Virginia or 81 corridor. This has been proven in Maryland and other states to cut in half the time it takes for first responders to get there and do their job. That's really, what's behind the bill, and we'd urge you to sort of reconsider what you did on the Senate version.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Marson.
question for the patron, or excuse me, yes, for the patron. Thank you. Delegate LaRock, we spend millions and millions of dollars on building highway lanes and expanding roads and separated grade intersections and removing traffic lights and what have you. Are traffic accidents still one of the most major causes of delays?
From my best recollection of the presentations that I sat in on from Deputy Secretary Donahue, they are on Route 81. I couldn't speak to the rest of the state, but that is definitely the main cause of delays on Route 81.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator
follow
Morrison.
up. Is it cheaper to put lights on vehicles to speed accident clearing, or is it more expensive to build highway lanes to increase traffic flow?
Well, that's a tough question. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I better not take too long to think about that softball question, but that is obviously, I think, one of the strengths of this bill. When we can improve how transportation, which is obviously managed by this government, without a significant cost to taxpayers, I hope we'll take that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a motion when it's appropriate time.
Senator Boysko.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This should be a nonpartisan issue. We carried this bill at the request of Loudoun County because there are significant traffic problems. I hope that it will be the pleasure of the body to support Delegate LaRock's bill. I think it's helpful, and I move that we pass it. Report it.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to report the bill. Remind the committee that we did basically put to rest this bill carried by Senator Boysko earlier. If there's no more discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of reporting the bill, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
Six ayes, 6 nays.
Okay, the bill fails to report on a 6-6 vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Okay, next we're going to take up the license plate bills. We have 4 bills. I think we can take those up in a block. As I understand it from the chairman, all of the bills already have the required number of signatures. Is that correct? If I can get a nod from the patrons. Yes, more importantly from our council. Okay, one is Protect Sea Life from Delegate Knight. One is Virginia State Parks from Delegate Bulova. One especially I think important is Navy Marine Corps Medal from Delegate Leftwich, and Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal from Delegate O'Quinn. Is there anybody here that wants to speak in opposition to these bills? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Move them in a block.
I'd second that motion.
All right, so we're moved in a block to report House Bill 1637, House Bill 1709, House Bill 1832, and House Bill 2220. All those in favor, please vote aye. The opposed, no. Thank you, gentlemen. Hope you have a nice day.
11 ayes, 0 nays.
And Delegate Knight, I hope you remember your treatment here. Okay. Do we have a sign-up sheet? Oh, okay. All right, let's go ahead and take Delegate Bulova. He's next in the queue. Delegate Bulova, going once. Oh, he was Bulova, okay. All right, next would be Delegate Keem. Hey there.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you for your time. I have.
Delegate, hold on, suspend just a second. Excuse me?
Did you pass Tyler's bill? She's sitting out there.
Not yet, we're going by the sign-up sheet. Yeah, yeah. All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sure, no problem, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1927. There hasn't been a Senate version of this, so you're seeing it for the first time, but the bill is a really simple bill, and I'd love to just take just a couple of seconds to explain it. But, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, if you have the time, I do have a constituent who came down from Vienna who might be able to say a few words about this.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, you might recall that the state ID issuance process already allows for certain Virginians with certain physical or disabilities to be able to indicate their disability. So, for example, right now, under current law, if you are hearing or speech impaired, or if you're an insulin-dependent diabetic, or somebody with intellectual disability or autism spectrum, you can indicate that on your state ID card as a way to kind of quickly say that I have a medical condition. This bill would simply add a blind and vision impaired as part of that on the state ID card only, of course, not on the driver license side. And Mr. Chairman, the reason I brought this bill is I have a constituent who is very active in the disability community in Northern Virginia who brought this issue to my attention. And if it's okay, I'd like to ask Mr. Brandon Cassidy just to say a few words.
Certainly, Delegate.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome,
Hi, guys.
sir.
My name is Brandon Cassidy. The idea for this bill came from my cousin, who has very low vision. He can see out of the corner of his eye. And he said, well, I can't find this designation on the website, and I just think this needs to change. And so by that time, I was like, okay, we can work on that, and so that's where you get the idea from, and I just never thought I'd get this far. So thank you, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for taking the time to come up here and talk to us. I appreciate it. Is the commissioner here? Hello, Mr. Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
You okay with this?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have worked with the patron, and as he says, it's just adding one more category, and we're fine to do that.
And of course, let's just remind everybody, we're talking about the special ID card that DMV provides. It's not a driver's permit, right? Okay. All right, is there anybody here to speak in opposition to this bill? If not, a motion is in order.
Move to report.
It's been moved and properly reported to, moved and properly seconded to report House Bill 1927. Those in favor, please vote aye. Opposed, no. Looks pretty good.
Thank you, Mr.
12
Chairman.
ayes, 0
Members,
nays.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Delegate.
Thank you.
We got Delegate Hodges.
Good afternoon, members of the committee.
Yes, sir.
It's good to be here. You have before you HB 2313, I believe.
All right.
As members of the General Assembly, we are often contacted by constituents, developers, folks that have issues with VDOTs. They've submitted a site plan, and of course, what happens is that VDOT comes back and recommends maximum access management standards on those site plans, and it turns into a negotiation. Virginia, we should be a business-friendly state. We here in the General Assembly, we're trying to embrace economic development, and it should not be a negotiation. So the bill is very simple. It requires the Commissioner of Highways shall require that any official who approves any highway access project shall certify that he has applied due diligence in approving such project, and that such project approval is, in his professional opinion, consistent with minimum standards pursuant to this section. So it's a fairly simple bill. We also don't realize there is an appeals process. Oftentimes, the folks in our districts do not realize this, so that actually is already in a regulation, so we pointed to that and codified that to point to those regulations in the code. It's a fairly simple bill.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody here to speak in support of the bill? Anybody to speak in opposition to the bill? Anybody from VDOT or anybody that wants to say anything about this? Joanne, you want to come up? Say hello, if nothing else.
Mr. Chair, Joanne Maxwell from VDOT. We have no position on the bill. We don't have an issue with the bill.
Okay. All right, thank you. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe this is for the patron or the VDOT expert, but when the Commissioner of Highways shall require that any official approving highway access shall apply due diligence, I'm just curious, is this above and beyond what's already required in code and the administrative, or is this just re-articulating what's there? I'm just trying to understand if we're adding a new level of due diligence.
You can do that, and if I may, I don't believe there's any requirement from the engineers that are reviewing this at VDOT to give the minimum standards up front to these developers, and that's basically what we're asking. To say, what are the minimum standards? And it turns into a negotiation, which turns into being very costly for these developers. So that's really all we're asking here, and if I may, from VDOT is.
Well, I think VDOT's already said they have no problems with the bill, and it shouldn't, there's
That's
no
all we're
financial
asking.
impact to it as well. There is no financial
No
impact.
financial, no fiscal impact.
Okay. All right, is there any other questions? Senator Favola.
Follow-up question. So this is going to be required for any highway access project, not whether the developer asks for it, it's just going to be required and part of the record?
The engineer that certifies that project needs to do their due diligence at the minimum standards, and they've actually gone through that with that individual project. Okay?
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if I might just clarify, basically it just says that the engineer shall provide his due diligence, and that basically in his professional opinion.
Correct.
Right.
Yes,
Okay,
Mr.
so there isn't a whole lot of extra paperwork and forms and all that other kind
No,
of
sir.
stuff. Okay. All right, any other questions? If not, a motion is in order.
Move to report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to report House Bill 2313. Those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no. All right, close the roll, please.
12 ayes, 0 nays.
Your bill is reported, Delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good to see you. All right, next we have Delegate McGuire.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, House Bill 2039. Typically, dealer sales activities must occur where the dealer is licensed at the dealership. Dealers with this legislation will be able to apply for an off-site sales license under certain circumstances. HB 2039 would allow a dealer participating in a new truck or auto sale to obtain an off-site license without notice or offer requirements. And I've got Tommy here with VADA to may answer questions if we have them.
Okay, sir, identify yourself and.
Yes, sir. Tommy Lucas with the Virginia Auto Dealers Association. First, would just like to thank the patron for carrying this bill. We very much are in support of this and appreciate his hard work, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions about what the bill does.
All right, can you, just in your own words, give us a brief overview of what you're trying to accomplish with the bill?
Yes, this would allow franchise dealers who are participating in a new car show to be able to sell late model used vehicles at that show. And it's, by and large, the dealers who participate in these would be able to do this now. The vast majority would be able to do this now. But for those who would not be able to do it under existing law, who would have to jump through some additional hoops, we would like to make it so that by virtue of participation in this show, you're able to sell used vehicles the way everybody else can.
All right. Are there questions of the patron? Mr. Commissioner? Anything? Nothing? Okay. Is there anybody here to speak in opposition to this bill? If not, a motion is in order.
Move to report. Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to report House Bill 2039. Those in favor, please say vote aye. Those opposed, no. Please close the roll.
12 ayes, 0 nays.
Your bill's reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Tommy's first bill, working on start to finish.
Okay, I believe we have Delegate Tyler is next. Oh, you're not. This isn't another golf cart bill, is it?
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, yes.
Delegate, before you get started, I got to tell you, I've been on the Transportation Committee my entire career in the General Assembly, starting in 2002. And there's been a golf cart bill every single year. So
I know.
Give it your best shot.
We got to help these little town folks out. House Bill 1678 came at the request of the Dendrum Town Council. And basically, this bill will include the town of Dendrum and Surrey County among the list of localities that will allow golf carts. The town of Dendrum and Surrey only have a population of about 250 persons and a small retired community, and they would like the opportunity to use the golf cart in their for short distance for their recreational activities in their neighborhood. I hope the committee will see favor on this bill.
Okay. DMV, you got anything?
No position.
All right, VDOT, anything? PGA, anything? All right,
Mr. Chairman?
Wait, before we do that, let me see if anybody else wants to speak to the bill. Is there anybody here in opposition to the bill? State Police, are you here? Mr. Maxey? Captain Maxey?
State Police, no position.
All right.
Mr.
Chairman, just an observation before
Senator
we
Martin.
vote, and I intend to vote for the bill, but we just passed a bill out about vulnerable vehicles, and I don't know that golf carts were listed.
It was not.
And we might want to advise Senator Survell to try to get that amended on the House floor, because we don't want people in golf carts being hurt on our.
I don't believe that bill progressed, did it? It did? Oh, boy. All right, you guys, take care of that over there. All right. We've heard about it. There has been a motion and a second to report House Bill 1678. All those in favor, please vote aye. Those no. All right, close the roll, please.
12 ayes, 0 nays.
All right, there will be no mulligans on this bill.
Thank
okay?
you.
All right. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you.
Let's see. Delegate Delaney. Delegate Delaney, there you are. What have you brought for us today?
So, Mr. Chairman, I have two bills in front of you today, so if you'd like to let me know which you'd like to hear first.
Whatever you feel like
All
talking
right,
about.
First one on my stack is, we'll do 1677.
All right, we'll bring our attention to House Bill 1677.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This was actually a situation brought to me by a constituent. He runs an auto shop and was working on a car whose tags had expired. And when he was looking at the code, he's allowed to drive a 5-mile radius with special tags that he's able to put on as a mechanic in order to test the car. The problem with his location is that with the current modern computerized engines, you actually have to do a few diagnostic tests to reset the catalytic converter that requires you driving at, and I've got this kind of technical list, half throttle until 55 miles an hour is reached, then you have to hold the speed for 3 minutes at 55 miles an hour. Long story short of that is in his location, that's just not capable, he's not capable of lawfully doing that within a 5-mile radius, and recognize that this could potentially be a problem in other locations in the state, so we put in this bill to extend that to a 10-mile radius, allowing a little bit more of a reasonable distance to accommodate the newer engines that we're seeing today that require these diagnostic test recommendations at a higher speed.
Okay. Is there anybody here to speak in favor of the bill? Mr. Commissioner?
No position.
State Police?
No positions.
Okay. I will say that if we're talking about catalytic converters, that's every car's been made for a great number of years,
It may be then, Chairman, the computerized component of it.
even those have been around for a long, long time. But that's fine. We get it. All right. Any questions to the patron? Hearing none, a motion is in order.
Move to report.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to report House Bill 1677. Those in favor, please vote aye, and those opposed, no. Please close the roll.
12 ayes, 0 nays.
The bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next.
I also have House Bill 1818.
Okay. We'll bring our attention to House Bill 1818.
All right, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, this bill was brought to me by my locality, Loudoun, who's experienced a tremendous amount of growth and will also be welcoming Metro in the coming months and years, and is considering the challenging of enforcing parking with limited police resources. They currently utilize the sheriff in Loudoun County. So currently, cities with a population of at least 40,000 are allowed to outsource their parking enforcement services. And this is simply a request to align the counties of the same size to have that same opportunity. This does not mandate that localities contract out these services, but it does allow for the local governing bodies to consider potential options, including those that might be more cost-effective for enforcement, also helping an already overworked police force. And this does not include vehicular infractions or traffic. This is simply matters of parking meters, parking in handicap spots, and fire lanes, things of that nature.
All right, thank you. This bill is similar, but not quite the same as Senate Bill 1044, which is carried by Senator Black. It's the normal practice of our committees that we will conform the bill to the bill that we passed from the Senate. And then if there are differences or you don't want to accept those recommendations, they can go to conference committee. Okay.
That's fine with me. I know we do have some localities that might be interested in speaking, but
Sure,
that's certainly the discretion of the chair to make that decision.
If localities are here and want to speak to it, and there's stuff they haven't said before, we're welcome to hear them.
Hi, Bernie Caton on behalf of the Virginia Municipal League. When this amendment came up, when you had the Senate bill, it was something we weren't prepared for, and I didn't want to get up and object because I didn't know what fees people charge for parking. Since then, we've looked at a number of localities. Almost all parking fines are less than $75, but there are some for very good reason that are higher than that, like a number of localities have a higher fine than that for parking in a fire lane. Alexandria has a higher fine than that for parking in an HOV lane, which actually probably benefits Prince William and Fairfax more than Alexandria residents. And for that reason, we think it would be best not to put that amendment on to this bill.
Okay. That's fine. All right, good. All right, I'm sorry.
That's all.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, sir, you want to speak?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Joe Lurch with VACO. And just to concur, we've looked at a lot of our members, and a lot of times they're at like $15, $30, for a normal violation in certain areas. But there are instances where fire hydrants and fire lanes, it is higher. So we prefer not to have that limitation just for that reason. Thank you.
Okay. Let me ask you before you go. You prefer a higher fine, but do you have a limitation that you've talked about?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think it's really up to the locality to decide how best to price those fines to get the correct behavior. We've seen, some as high as like 200 or 250 maybe particularly for fire lane and safety. And there might be repeat violations. So if somebody's just repeatedly violating, parking in a fire lane, it might be a little bit higher. I do note that I think when this was discussed in the full committee, Senator Black's bill, there was reference to a section further down in the code about the $75 limit. But that was particular just for Chesterfield and James City County, and it was put in 2001. And it actually doesn't deal with the fines. It deals with the civil prosecution. So it's really kind of an apples and oranges thing, we believe.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else here to speak for the bill? Anybody to speak in opposition to the bill? Okay, Delegate, like I said, it's our usual practice to conform the bills. I understand there's some differences. Maybe y'all can work that out in committee if indeed the bills are conformed, okay?
Sounds good to me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. That being said, if there are no other questions from the committee, is there a motion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sudalan.
I'd first move to amend House Bill 1818 so that it conforms with Senate Bill 1044 as it was engrossed and passed by the Senate.
Okay, there's been a motion to conform House Bill 1818 to Senate Bill 1044.
Mr. Chairman?
Hold on a second. Is there a second?
Senator Newman seconds.
Okay. All right.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Morrison.
Chairman. I wish we'd vote against that amendment. This is something I think that can best be done between the patrons and go over the evidence that has been presented here today about the differences in the way localities do this. I don't think it's the business of the state to get into these issues. Some places are going to have a lot of fire lane problems. They're going to have a lot of hydrant problems and what have you, and they need that extra. Some jurisdictions won't, and I think they'll price it accordingly. But let's let them work that out in conference. I think that's a more appropriate way to go. So I'd ask you to vote against the amendment.
Senator Morrison, let me ask you, how can they work it out in conference if it doesn't go to conference?
Well, if the bills would be different, because I believe hers would not have the cap on it. The one that went over to the House does have the cap on it. And so I believe there would be a conference to reconcile the differences.
Only for Senator Black's bill?
On Senator Black's bill.
Right. Okay. I think the fear that some people have, including myself, is that we have some localities that could abuse that fining amount. Certainly we've had instances of that in the past, and I think that's why there has been a motion and a second to conform the bills, and y'all can work it out. So the motion's been made.
Mr. Chair, just
Senator McClellan.
Speaking to the motion very briefly, I just want to remind everyone that the amendment that was placed on Senator Black's bill, which in its original form was identical to Delegate Delaney's, was one that was made at the end of the presentation with very little discussion, and none of the localities who would be impacted by the amendment given the opportunity to present how they would be impacted by the amendment. And I don't know if any of those locality representatives are here or were aware this would be heard today. I can't speak to that. But I can speak to that I reached out to one of the localities that I represent that would be affected by that amendment. And in their preliminary analysis, this would result in a reduction in revenue there because many violators in their experience do not pay their tickets until they're delinquent. And knowing that a penalty would never exceed $75 will deter violators from paying their citations in a timely manner. And high violation fines are needed to reduce the abuse of the handicap zones and designated spaces, as we've already discussed. In this locality, they have fine categories that are up to $200 because fines increase every 30 days after you don't pay it. And it sort of gets to a point where it gets the violators' attention and then they come in and pay. And so this locality is very concerned that it will hinder their ability to collect the fines if they don't have a graduated fine statement. Now, none of that testimony was given because none of the localities that currently don't have a cap even knew that was an issue to come here. And I felt compelled to give that testimony, at least on behalf of the city of Richmond, and that is why I will not be voting to conform the bill.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Suderline,
speaking to the amendment,
please go ahead.
there is nothing to cap, and I'm happy to be corrected, and to cap the government actually performing a governmental function to cap the amount that they're going to do. What the situation and the concerns that are being expressed here is we have companies that will be financially incentivized to ticket being given the authority. That's the issue we have.
Okay. Senator Favola. Well, let's try not to beat this to death. I think we know what's going to happen.
Thank you. I mean, I just want to make a point that these fines are set by localities after extensive public hearings and input and, or adopted ordinances and policies. So it's, to Senator Suderline's point, it is true nothing would affect the authority of the local government to set the fines. But what your amendment would do is affect the ability of this third party. They would not be able to charge fines, collect fines for more than $75. Is that correct?
What my amendment is seeking to do is to put this into conformity with what was passed here, and so that any other discussion can go through in conference. That's all my amendment's seeking to do today. I mean, we can have a lengthy debate about this, but I have an idea of how the vote will go today if it's not conformed. I think that it's in the delegate's best interest where she could have votes on the floor and you could make your argument. I think that it's in the patron's interest to have the bill conformed.
Okay.
And that's what I was trying to say very briefly without having a lengthy debate today.
All right, thank you. I will say, having come from local government and where we did these ordinances, there was not great debate. There was not great public hearings. It was usually on the consent agenda, and pow, it happened. So the idea that it'd be, anyway. So there is a motion and a second to conform the bill to Senate Bill 1044. Those in favor, please vote aye, and those opposed, no. All right, close the roll.
7 ayes, 6 nays.
All right, it's been 7 ayes, 6 nays to conform the bill. Is there a motion on the bill?
I move the report.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and properly seconded to report the bill as amended. Those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, no.
No. 12 ayes, 1 nay.
Thank you very much. Your bill is reported as amended.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman
I
and
yield back
committee
to you.
members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I had to step over and take up a Supreme Court justice. So If you want to come up and present your bill, Chairman Yancey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members, I bring before you House Bill 1768. What this bill seeks to achieve is, as a reminder, a few years ago, the General Assembly passed a law requiring that vehicles used as taxi cabs have that fact noted on the vehicle title when sold, and that such vehicles might frequently exceed a mechanical unit. Now that odometers are electronic and display the actual total miles, this law is no longer necessary. This change, Mr. Chairman, comes from a DMV task force in 2017 in which, without objection, it was noted that it was impacting several thousand operators and drivers across the Commonwealth and their ability to sell these vehicles. So all this bill seeks to do, Mr. Chairman, is just replace the law. Eliminates the outdated requirement, and that's all the bill seeks to achieve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions of the patron? So all you're doing is taking the name taxi cab off of the certificate
That is
of
correct.
title when these are resold.
That is correct. And, Mr. Chairman, for clarity, in the House, there was some confusion on the floor about whether or not this would impact, say, Uber or Lyft, and it does not. It's just simply and only taxi cabs.
Okay. Just ask to cancel real quick. There was a question brought up to me on the way in, and you may know this answer, Chairman Yancey. Since it's no longer be listed as a taxi cab, is the title of this bill just, is the title correct on it since the vehicle isn't, says certification and title, vehicle used as a taxi cab. If it's not going to be identified as a taxi cab, they were asking if the title of the bill is correct, which I'm no lawyer. I don't know. Don't want to confuse the issue. It was just brought up to me.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that if it is not statutorily required to be on the title, then the title would be correct if it wasn't listed.
All right. That being said, is there anyone want to speak in favor or against this bill? It's been moved. Is there a second? Moved second to report the bill. All in favor, vote aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry you had to wait. It's that time of year when we have to, I've been here for 18 years and couldn't find the courts committee.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Sorry,
Thank you,
but
members.
it's my fault. Sorry.
Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Delegate Garrett, you're next on the sign-up list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, before you, House Bill 2487. This is to grant some clarifying language in the code to the term motor vehicle dealer. Last year, there was an issue that was raised. There was a constituent that had, I think, more than 5 vehicles in his front yard, and the question is whether that, in fact, is a motor vehicle dealer, and it turns out there was a lot of ambiguity in the code. So DMV, during the summer and over the interim, DMV and the Motor Vehicle Dealers Board and the auto dealers and franchise and independent auto dealers and automobile manufacturers all got together and came up with this product that you have before you. I know of no opposition to it. It basically clarifies which activities make a person a motor vehicle dealer. It provides that selling 5 or more vehicles creates only a rebuttable presumption that a person is in fact a motor vehicle dealer. It restores the exemption for Virginia's motor vehicle dealer laws for sellers of ambulances and firefighting equipment. It clarifies that manufacturers and distributors selling vehicles to motor vehicle dealers are not themselves dealers, and it specifies that a trailer is considered a motor vehicle for the purposes of Virginia's motor vehicle dealer laws. That's basically what it does, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to elaborate upon it. I know of no opposition. I'm sure there are folks here from DMV and probably Motor Vehicles Dealers Board if you have questions as well, sir. That's basically what it does, sir.
Is there anyone on the committee have questions of the patron? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor? Anyone in the audience like to speak in opposition? Everything good, Commissioner? All right. All right. It's been moved second to report the bill. All in favor, vote aye on the electronic voting board. Just keep voting.
Thirteen ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. Bill's reported.
I thank the chairman and the committee.
Thank you. Delegate Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have House Bill 2551.
We've had some technical difficulties again. I've screwed the system up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2551 is kind of related to the larger bill that Senator Deeds had, which was Senate Bill 1481, I believe, which passed out. As you know, Virginia is home to many current and recently separated military members. For those members who are either current or within the last year while they were on active duty were required to operate a commercial motor vehicle as part of their duties, this would require the Commissioner of DMV to waive certain knowledge and skills tests required for either the commercial learner's permit, the driver's license itself, or an endorsement. And it also brings us in conformance with federal law, which has that 1-year requirement as well.
All right. Senator Cosgrove.
Mr. Chairman, this falls right in line with the number of bills that we've passed in the last several years. I actually carried one that would require the community college system to give academic credit for
Go ahead.
For credits they may have for training in the military, and this falls right in line with that. I think it's the right thing to do. Certainly, if you're able to drive one of our large military vehicles, you can probably handle some of the stuff over here. So if there's no opposition, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think the only thing, it's similar to the one that we passed. The only thing is that it directs, it's a shall instead of a may. And I don't think the commissioner has any objections to that because this is just putting them in compliance with what federal law does.
Mr. Chairman, we're so strongly in support of this. We're willing to be mandated on this.
All right. No, I think we just need
Move to report, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we report the bill. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays. Bill is reported.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Bloxham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1777, I think, is identical to Senate Bill 1516. That passed out of this committee. About parking in Cape Charles, adding.
Yes. Yep. So is there any questions? It's not the same as the,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Would the patron say the Senate bill number again?
Senate Bill 1560 from Senator Lewis.
Yeah, we've already,
Mr. Chair, I don't think it was in the block.
no, but I don't know, I don't have any record that it was the same as that bill.
We're going to take a quick look. Just
Is this the one dealing with the
parking ordinance
Cape
in
right, with
in Cape Charles? Yes, sir.
Watercrafts and.
Yeah, the boat trailer's getting so large.
Senator Lewis gave a very nice description of the town, so maybe you could do it and then it will remember it's the exact same town.
Okay, it is identical,
I move to
so
report.
it's been moved and seconded, then we report the bill. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Even the Senate can make a mistake. One.
That's the only one.
That's okay. Delegate Hurst.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Afternoon.
This is a bill that you have not heard in this committee this session. House Bill 1786 is a disability access bill to try and improve the ability for anyone who has a qualified disability to be able to get where they need to go that complies with the ADA. So this came to my attention from a constituent. I represent an area that has a lot of public institutions and public entities. That person has a disability and was using a moped. It was a gas-powered vehicle on the property of that public entity, and was told that he could no longer be there because they cited this specific code section, 462903, that says if it's not one of these qualifying devices, or vehicles, it's not permissible to have. The problem is that recent Department of Justice guidance, actually from 2011, for the ADA in Title II, which covers state and local government programs, actually defines what an other power-driven mobility device is and says that you can't discriminate what type of vehicle somebody who has a qualifying disability uses, as long as they have a qualifying disability, and this is something that they think that they need to use in order to get around. So what we are trying to do with this bill is to try to conform with federal law and allow public entities to come up with their own policies instead of just citing this code section as a straight denial of allowing that individual to be able to have their vehicle on public property.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
I think staff or our attorney has seen
That's right. I
something
apologize.
technical amendment that she would like to offer if you give us a moment. Beth.
Mr. Chairman, it just relocates the end of the sentence to somewhere in the beginning so that the amendment would go on line 16 of the House substitute after public entity. And the amendment would be in accordance with the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 with the public law number and the statutory citation and other applicable state and federal laws, which is the same language on lines 19 through 21, and strike that language on 19 through 21.
So, Delegate Hurst, we're not doing anything different to your bill. We're just trying to clarify it a little bit.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It seems like, I'm trying to make sure it's grammatically correct.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
I'd move the adoption of the amendment.
All right. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
And I have a question or comment to the patron. I think it's a good bill. I appreciate it. But it sounds, we represent areas very close to each other. And it sounds like the bigger issue is with the institution itself. So this bill is great, but I imagine you've already had a conversation with one of our institutions about this.
Mr. Chairman, to the Senator, I would say that we have had discussions, and because there's ambiguity in state law, that we're just trying to clean it up and make sure that it conforms with the ADA so that these institutions and public entities are able to come up with policies that are accommodating to individuals with qualifying disabilities.
Yeah, I just think it's important that their posture be of accommodation for these Virginians. And since it's one near us, I presume it's one very close to my district. It really can only be two. I'm interested in that, so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Anyone in the audience like to speak favor or against?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Colleen Miller from the Disability Law Center, and we support this legislation. Be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience? All right. Is there a motion? It's been moved and seconded. We report the bill. All in favor vote aye on electronic voting board.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Delegate Head. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have for you House Bill 1662, which was, actually still is, I think, identical to Senator Suderline's.
So let me just try to help you. It's just a little different because we're dealing with seat belted in, not just car seat.
Exactly. And so there's a technical amendment that has been
Right.
brought before us, and that's all we need to do, just to make an adjustment to make sure that it's clear that we don't actually end up doing harm to the law
Right.
enforcement.
So if you
and trying
want
to clear something up.
if you want to go ahead and report that. Okay. So is there a motion on the substitute? It's been moved and second that we adopt a substitute to House Bill 1662. All in favor, say aye on the, or say aye. All opposed? All right. So now the substitute's before us, so we just have a technical amendment. It changes the language just a little bit to move it in the direction of the child restraints.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay? Any questions of the patron? Anyone in the audience like to speak in favor? Anyone like to speak in opposition? It's been moved and seconded. We report the bill. All in favor vote aye on electronic voting board.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Bill reports 13-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Delegate Stiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1983. The Rail Enhancement Fund is a dedicated source of funding for capital improvements benefiting passenger and freight initiatives. The fund is typically utilized by Class 1 railroads, the Port of Virginia, and...
Can we do a line amendment? You
Yes,
should
sir.
have been advised that there's some clarification so that you don't put any other funding at jeopardy that's not a grant funding.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the amendment clarifies the federal funding source. The amendment is on line 44 of the engrossed bill after the stricken language federal government source. Strike federal project, federal grants, insert federal funds for freight rail projects.
All right. Is there a motion on that amendment?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. We adopt the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill allows the federal funds to be used to meet the 30% match for freight rail projects.
All right. Any questions of the patron?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Favola.
This looks like a clarification. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because it says a federal government source, and you're really talking about federal project grants. So this is a clarification. This bill is not talking about a new funding source, or am I wrong?
It does open up the funding source from what was previously. Previously, no federal funds were allowed to be used for any projects that came from the Rail Enhancement Fund. This does allow some specific federal funds to be used. It allows the Port of Virginia and a few other projects to leverage those federal funds and actually get some more funding for projects that are going down. Certainly the Port of Virginia would utilize this. Might also be used on the Long Bridge construction projects.
That makes perfect sense. It's from a policy standpoint, we would want to leverage our state dollars and gain federal dollars. So that's a good policy.
All right. Any other questions? Would you like to speak to the bill?
Jennifer Mitchell, Director of the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, and I would like to thank the patron for working with us to clarify this language, and we are in support of this.
Thank you.
Dustin Reinhardt with the Port of Virginia. We also in support of this.
Thank you.
Tyler Minnick from the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. We also support the bill.
Thank you. All right. Anyone in opposition? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to report the bill.
It's been moved second that we report House Bill 1983. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Bill reports 13-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
House Bill 2273.
Yep, House Bill 2273 basically states that if a person violates texting while driving and they're passing a stopped school bus, it has a punishable mandatory fine of $250, so it doubles the fine.
All right, so we have now a bill that passing a school bus while using the cell phone with double
Texting.
enhanced fines.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sudaline.
I have a question for the delegate about this.
Yes, sir.
What we have had presented to us over and over again, especially yesterday when the vast majority of the Senate passed a bill to prohibit touching the phone in any way, which I think is something which would be interesting to hear about. I don't think folks intended for it to be quite that broad. But we were told that it was necessary to do it that way because the texting while driving statute was unenforceable. And I just don't know how this will work. And I'd just like to hear how it would be enforced when we're told that the current texting I mean, it just seems very challenging to make this happen because if we're told that the current texting while driving statute's not enforceable, and I guess to make the fine enhanced, you would have to both be able to prove that they were texting, which is very difficult, and then you would also need to be able to do it, prove that they were texting while they were driving by. I mean, I don't know, how can that sort of precision be delivered by law enforcement or by a prosecutor?
I would simply answer the gentleman by saying that the idea of the bill came before me from one of my town councilmen in our town, in the town of Warrenton. They had gone, and on certain streets there were numerous people passing a school bus. One of the people was actually standing there. You could see that they were texting while they did that. And they've prosecuted, at least passing a stop arm school bus in town, they've prosecuted 9 folks so far, just because it seemed to be being enhanced. So law enforcement just seemed to be more apt to be there when it actually happened. The councilman and I came up with this idea in order to just double it, to really just kind of prove a point that you don't want to pass a school bus where children could be crossing the street with a stop arm out while you're texting.
So let me just kind of chime in here. This is the section of the bill that deals with school bus arms cameras that, or it's just the school bus arm where an individual could witness it, get a warrant for it, and then law enforcement would serve it.
Well, the bill is drafted into the texting while driving section, and so it's if you are convicted of texting while driving and you are passing a school bus, then it doubles the fine rather than going the other way.
So is this
half a loaf out of the house?
I know you said law enforcement, but these are also warrants that the private citizen can obtain. So the bus driver could actually obtain. They couldn't.
It's
All right.
just about fine.
Okay. Senator McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I have a couple of questions. First, I'm still struggling with how this jives with the texting bill we just passed. But before I get there, I thought I heard you say it increases the penalty, and the summary says it increases the penalty to $300 and then creates an increased penalty of $600. But when I look at the text of the bill itself, I don't see that.
Well, that's because the bill, when we brought the bill to the House, we amended it.
Okay.
And so because it was in this section, because last year we did the texting while driving through a work zone.
Yes.
And so therefore, we felt that it fit better in that section, in dealing with texting while driving. And so if you are texting while driving and in violation of 26.2-884, which is passing a school bus, then it's a mandatory fine of $250, which is on top of $250 of passing a school bus.
Okay.
So it's actually $500. The original bill had an increased fine.
Okay, so the summary is just wrong.
But we decided not to do that. Yeah, the summary is on the amounts is incorrect.
Okay, and follow up, Mr. Chair, which I think is more for council, because it's a legal question. So if both House Bill 2273 and the 2 texting while driving bills pass, the texting while driving bills, the violation in C is a violation of 46.2/1078. So what this bill is actually going to do is say, if you hold a handheld personal communications device while passing a bus, that's what the fine is, not texting. Is that right? If both of these bills pass?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not familiar with the texting while driving bill since that came out of the courts committee, I believe. But if there is a conflict in the law, then it would be up to the governor to decide and then send it back.
Okay, so, well, Ms. Chair, I just read the texting while driving bill, and what we did was change A, which is the violation, to say it is unlawful for any person while driving a motor vehicle on the highways in the Commonwealth to hold a handheld personal communications device, period. That is what A will say if the governor signs the texting while driving bills. And there, C is the fine for violating A. So if both of these pass, the governor signs, it's the second bill signed is the one that overrides the first. Is that right? So I just want everybody to understand, if we pass this, governor signs texting while driving bill, and then the governor signs this, would that inadvertently undo the texting while driving bill, or would they be merged together?
Mr. Chairman, I believe, Senator McClellan, I believe the answer is that they would be merged together regardless of the order in which the governor signed it, because the first in time, or the second in time rule only applies when there's a conflict.
Okay, thank you. So again,
So-
so if everybody's clear, what C is an enhanced penalty if you violate A. And based on what the House and the Senate did, that means it is enhanced penalty for someone who holds a handheld device while passing a bus. We that's probably what we want to do. I just want everybody to understand that with the two bills passing, that's what we're doing.
So I with that explanation, I think she is exactly right. I guess I have more concerns in the fact that passing a school bus is a more egregious offense than what you have here. So trying to get a law enforcement officer, if the law enforcement officer sees an individual passing a school bus, even if they're on a cell phone, that can constitute reckless, which is a much more severe offense than this is. And I don't know how this makes it more enforceable, because what you're trying to do here is get law enforcement to charge people under this code, which is a lesser offense than what they can be charged for already.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that our goal for the legislation in general is just that if you pass a school bus and you were using your phone, we want to make sure that you don't do it again. Right. And that was the goal of the legislation. And as it came out of courts, the thought process was, I guess, to double the fine if you passed a school bus and you were caught holding your hand held. And that was the thought process coming out of courts. So okay. The policy's up before you. Do what you will.
Gotcha. Any other questions? Senator Chase. Yeah, you're up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the intent of the bill by the patron. In fact, I have a similar bill last year. And although I always want to say yes, this is one time I'm going to have to say I think it needs a little more work, but I'm happy to work with the patron for next year. Thank you.
And if I may say something, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
One of the reasons we moved this legislation forward too is because we didn't know what the fate of the other bills were to be as well. So that was an excellent question.
Well, we don't know either. You still have to look at it.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. You got two more hurdles to go. So.
I'll leave the policy's decision before you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee. And
any other questions? All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Chase.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to PBI.
There's a motion. Is there a second? Yes. Motion and second to PBI the bill. All in favor of PBI, vote aye on electronic voting board.
Eight ayes, 5 nays.
Bill is PBI at 8-5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think you're on to something, but you may want to look at Senator Stewart's bill. I think it'll be in conflict if you all pass it.
The hands-free? I'm on the House version.
Okay. All right,
Thank you,
good.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, last bill, our Delegate Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So we're adding Ashland now.
Adding
to,
Ashland, that's right, well, it's actually a very small, like a little tabletop Christmas tree at this point, but anyway.
Will Frank Hargrove be able to get across the street easier?
We may have to add yellow blinking lights at this point for him to be able to cross the street, sir, because he slowed up considerably since he was a member down
Will you
there
tell
with you.
him I'll come and get him across the street if I have to?
Thank you, sir. I know he'd appreciate that, Senator Carrico. But again, simply what this bill does is just adds Ashland to a list of Alexandria, Fairfax, Falls Church, Loudon, Arlington, to localities that can by ordinance add, pedestrian crosswalks with flashing lights, and again, also with, I guess, an enhanced penalty if some of our good citizens of the center of the universe get run over, or people obviously violate the ordinance. So that's essentially just what the bill does, Senator.
Very simple bill.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Marsden.
Thank you, Delegate Fowler. This is not casting aspersions on the pedestrian ability of Randolph-Macon College students, is it?
No, sir. At least not in the daylight hours, anyway.
Thank you.
That yellow light might be a distraction if it's nighttime.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, I move we report this excellent bill that will help the town of Ashland.
It's been moved and second to report House Bill 1648. All in favor, vote aye on electronic voting board.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
13 ayes, 0 nays.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, committee. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's clears our docket for today. I think we should have about 14, 15 more bills next week, so we should be in good shape. We're adjourned.